Thank you so much for staying here on the AM show. It's now time to let you in on a very important dialogue happening later today at 11 a.m. at the University of Professional Studies here in Accra. And it's the Currency Development Dialogue Series. It's the first of its kind. And once again, I have been joined by Dr. Eric Boachi-Adam, who is a senior lecturer at the Faculty of Accounting and Finance at the university. To my immediate left, and my far left, Professor Isaac Poidi. He's the Dean of the Faculty of Accounting and Finance at UPSA. Welcome, Doc and Prof. It's good to have you here again.
Thank you. Good to see you, Bernice.
Right. All right. So, I mean, we've had this conversation, but for the benefit of those who are not aware of what currency development is, Prof, just run us through the entire concept and why it's important that we even begin to have such conversations.
Yes, thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers. We're here last, I think 2 days ago, and we had to break the concept down. Today we have to do that.
Right.
So there are a few things that we are going to consider this morning at 11 o'clock at UPSA campus. It's a currency development dialogue series. What is it about? The idea is to explore the geopolitics of de-dollarisation, impact on a common African currency. There are two ways that we need to break it down. Geopolitics, we're looking at political international relationships that are influenced by some factors. And then de-dollarisation is about trading less of a dollar. That's all the discussion about. In 2007, we had a world financial crisis. And a quick response to that, 5 countries came together in Russia to have a common economic partnership, not a political partnership. After the formation, several meetings have been held. And there's one coming in August this year in South Africa, where there's going to be introduction of a new currency. That will just key discussions. There will be other things, but the idea is to have a dollar-backed digital currency that will be introduced for trading. And our dialogue today will seek to stimulate discussions around economic and political areas. That's what we are going to discuss, and its impact on our common currency as in Africa.
Right. So these countries that you refer to, the BRICS, right?
Yes.
Is what you refer to, all right. But here in our sub-region, Doc, we know that we have made attempts at having a regional currency. I don't know how long it will take us to get there, but briefly share with us how we can learn from this example, the lessons from the BRICS, and why it's important that we begin to consider, a common currency for the sub-region.
Thank you, Bernice.
Consider its implementation, rather, because we have already considered it. So the effective implementation of it is what I'm talking about.
So within the African context, if we have to come up with a common currency, we have to learn from previous currencies that have been developed. We have the EU, that is the euro. Then BRICS is coming up. So what is the trajectory? What path does it follow? If, like Prof rightly mentioned, when they came together in 2009 and later South Africa joined in 2010, they've taken their time to bury their differences. If we look at the politics between China and India, they have differences. They have border dispute, differences in governance, differences in ideologies and trade and everything. But because of their common aim, they bury that differences. And that is what Africa has not been able to do. Whether we should go with the Francophone, whether we should look at the Anglophone, so the politics of it, we should come to the point where we bury the differences of it. And secondly, the BRICS nations are building a financial institutions. For example, they have the New Development Bank that is almost working like the World Bank. Within that New Development Bank, they have been able to sponsor about 30 billion projects, and they are also trying to consolidate countries. And as we speak now, there are about 14 nations that have applied to be part of the BRICS. So probably we'll be having BRICS Plus to cater for the other nations that are coming on. So So it's a gradual process, and they are building the systems to capture it. And that's what Africa is failing to do. That we started the discussion of an ECO several years before this BRICS. We don't have the political will. We are not burying our differences to bring every country within the African continent together to make sure this works. So until then, I think we'll keep talking about ECO, and it will still not see the light of day.
Prof, you used the term de-dollarisation. Why is that important? And what are the implications of achieving that?
I indicated that D means that you want to do less of something, and you bring dollar. So you want to trade less, less dependence on a certain currency. And if nations such as nations that control about 26% of trillion of resources, financial resources coming together, it tells you that you're going to have a shift in the global economic dynamics. It will change. So if a countries are going to come together to trade on one common currency, the implications for Africa are enormous. We're going to have, it changes our trading pattern. It also changes our reserves, preferences as well. So these are things that we want our listeners to come.
And coming right. But is that the key to our currency gaining grounds? Because as we established when you came the time back, when the dollar goes down, as Doc told us, the trajectory shows over the years, another will rise to take its place. Doesn't that bring us to the same point then?
Well, I don't know what the.
All right, Doc.
But I think it gave us a trend.
Yeah.
Starting from Spanish real, it moved all the way to the Dutch guilder, then to the British pound, and then all the way after the Second World War, dollar took over. Yes, if anything to go by, then it's a time for another currency to be used.
But my question is, doesn't it bring us to the same point where we'll still have to trade in that currency? That currency will gain dominance, and then we are back to square one, not having enough reserves to meet the demands on the market. Can't the playing field be such that we don't have one dominant currency over a particular country, say the yuan, for example, the Chinese yuan, for example? Is it possible that we can get to the point where we trade in currencies and not just one, given such dominance to one particular country? If that is possible, how long will it take us to get there?
How long will be difficult to tell from where I sit. But then we can look at the fundamentals that will take us there by looking back to see the future. What is going to get us there is, number one, the share of the global economy that you control, and also the natural resources you control, and how you're able to bargain on the international platform. And if you look at the BRICS, Russia and Brazil control a huge portion of natural resources.
Yeah.
And China also control a huge portion of global output. So they have what it takes. And if we look at the dynamics, the country that is making out the BRICS, they represent about 4 out of the 7 continents. So they want to have a fair representation. But then the question is, will Africa, if the BRICS introduce, are we going to come back to square one, where we have to also build another reserve in BRICS currency? The question is yes. If we don't see the future coming, you'll always be taking, it will always take you by surprise, and you have to flow with the wind. So this discussion aims to make us as an Africans to look forward and prepare towards it, that, hey, even if we sign on to the BRIC currency, and we don't do what we need to do by building our institution, building our industries and factories, we will come back to be a slave to another currency, just like the dollar.
And just like in the UN, where certain countries have better bargaining powers than others, is it the same within the BRICS, or it's an equal playing field for all these 5 countries that make up the BRICS?
Yes, I think in so many areas there will be variations. Resources-wise, geographical-wise, space and all that. I think these countries, as indicated, about 40% of the world's population. We indicate that it's going to be a plus, meaning the rest of other continents or countries who are likely to join. And we've been told of other countries preparing to join. It shapes the entire global space. And there's a time that a good model also needs to be replicated. We are championing a common cause. But we have a case study, a test case. And the test case is that there's going to be introduction of a currency. We learn the political will, we learn the institutional powers. We also can look at the economic convergence of how these things are done. And it's a good field for us to learn.
So the BRICS currency will be outlawed this year?
It's part of the discussions in South Africa.
The Russian-Ukraine issue doesn't affect it at all, does it?
Okay.
Because we're talking about geopolitics here, talking about
that's nowhere. But let me also mention the composition, that for now, each of the 5 countries has 1 vote. So when they were contributing to build the new development bank of the BRICS, each of them contributed an equal amount. So in terms of composition, for now, then whether it will change in the future, each of them has 1 vote. But whether it will be introduced this year or not, when you check Bloomberg, as at last week, the ambassador of South Africa, who is committed to this BRICS, Mr. Neil, mentioned that they don't intend to introduce a common currency now, but rather they will deepen trading in their local currency.
Okay.
So, which is mostly the yuan, and they buy and sell within their local currency instead of going for the yuan. So we are not saying that it will be introduced just this year, but it's a long-term plan that they need to build consensus. They need to get a lot of countries to sign on. They need to build the infrastructure to contain it when it's being introduced. So I should say that we don't see it introduced soon, but eventually something needs to overthrow the dollar.
I know you want to hear a lot more, and that's why you have to make time to join Prof and Doc much later today at 11 a.m. at the UPSA West Wing of the auditorium, right? And the conversation is on currency development. All you need to know about it. It will be a very insightful conversation. Will it be streamed live on your Facebook, UPSA?
Yes, on our other platforms.
All right, here on Joy as well.
Yeah. You want to cover it live.
Yeah.
And before we leave, we want to also thank our sponsors.
Right, please go ahead.
Headline sponsor, Abokobi Rural Bank, and Safety Insurance Brokers Insurance as well, and your good self and your institution as well.
Right. It's a pleasure to have you here. So we'll make a date with you at 11 a.m. at the UPSA West Wing of the auditorium. Who will be speaking?
So we are expecting Professor Vladimir Intridanson, who is more of international relations. We are expecting Dr. Na Hassan Dani, formerly of Stanbic. We are expecting a rep from the West African Monetary Institution. And we are expecting Mr. Seth Amwakon from the Financial Intelligence Center, and especially within the space we find ourselves, financial intelligence. So it's going to be a wonderful and insightful discussion.
Yes.
And we're going to have 2 parts. We have the panel presentation, we have the discussion section, and questions and answers, where questions that viewers are unable to ask now, they can ask us through our social media handles, and also physically present, they will have the opportunity to ask their questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Prof and Doc, for joining me this morning. To shed more light on the UPSA's Currency Development Dialogue Series, Professor Isaac Boydi is Dean, Faculty of Accounting and Finance at the UPSA, and Dr. Eric Boate-Yadrom is Senior Lecturer, Faculty of Accounting and Finance at the same university. So 11 a.m. is the time you want to stay glued to your TV set for more on that. Well, when I come back, I'll be talking to winner of the maiden edition of Cues and Lyrics, Tragan, this day.